script. I'm Jean McMenamin of the League of Women Voters of Linn County. The League is a nonprofit volunteer political organization which neither supports nor opposes any candidate or political party. The League encourages citizen participation in government and is open to any citizen 18 years and older. This forum is part of our voter education efforts to help voters make informed decisions at the upcoming elections. We hope that over the course of this program you will learn more about the candidates and what they hope to do for our state, our county, and our city. Our candidates forum tonight is between Tim Gull and Ben Rogers, who are both running for the office of District 3 Linn County Supervisor. Some of the procedures that we'll use tonight. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement and 2 minutes for a closing statement. And they're each going to have 2 minutes for responses to questions. Opening and closing statements will be done in the following order. We've decided that Ben Rogers is going to go first in the opening and that Tim Gull will go second in the opening. The timekeeper is sitting in the first row. When there is a half a minute left on speaking time, the timekeeper will hold up a card that says 30 seconds, indicating you have 30 seconds to finish your answer. At 15 seconds, the timekeeper will hold up a card that says 15 seconds. Please wrap up when you see the stop sign. If you continue speaking, I'll have to say thank you and move on. Candidates will confine their statements and responses to relevant issues and refrain from personal attacks. This forum is being recorded in the back by Robin Cash of Neighborhood Network News and will be available to watch at the League of Women Voters, linncounty.org website, as well as www.neighborhoodnetworknews.com. Please, all of you, turn off cell phones or put them on mute. If at any time during the forum you can't hear the moderator or the candidates, please let us know. We request that you treat all candidates fairly. Please remain quiet throughout the forum, no clapping, cheering, or calling out, with the exception that after the closing statements, please clap for everyone. You're encouraged to submit questions, and we have forms around, and we have people who will get you forms if you think of questions during the forum. Raise your hand if you would like one. A league panel will review the questions for legibility, and they're sitting right over here, clarity and applicability to all candidates. I'll read as many questions as time allows, sometimes combining similar questions, trying to get in as many as possible. All right, so we're going to start with 2 minutes for the opening statement, and Ben Rogers is going to begin.
Again, thank you all for coming tonight, and a special thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this and for KTOS, but especially the League for their continual advocacy and ensuring that citizens are engaged with their local elected officials and candidates for office. And I'd also like to thank Tim for running for supervisor. This is probably maybe the second time or third time we've crossed paths, so it'll be really interesting for us to share our views in future of Linn County. I'm running for re-election because I'm passionate about helping people and trying to find common sense solutions to complicated and complex issues. I was recently endorsed by the Cedar Rapids Gazette for being a thoughtful, process-oriented supervisor for my role in helping regionalize mental health and disability services, for leading the effort to increase the minimum wage in Linn County, and using transformational practices to help achieve greater efficiency and effectiveness of county government operations. So there's three areas I'm proud of that I want to share with you since being your supervisor. First is your taxes are lower. Your tax rate is lower today than when I started. And Linn County has a AAA bond rating. We're one of the few counties to have this. We also invest in quality of life initiatives specifically for people with mental health challenges and disabilities. And third, transforming Linn County's operations to be more effective and efficient by using the principles of business to improve the business of government. So I really do look forward to your questions tonight, and would certainly ask for your vote on November 8th, or if you're voting early. Thank you.
Good evening. First of all, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this debate, and I'd like to thank Ben for being able to come and have a lively debate. I'm afraid I have a confession to make. I had a customer call me and tell me that she saw one of my campaign signs in the yard of Psychic Readings by Sherry on Blair's Ferry Road. I almost didn't come tonight. I figure a psychic isn't going to endorse a loser. But here I am, and I decided to come anyway. My name is Tim Gull. I'm introducing myself because I haven't been campaigning for the last 9 years, so I thought a formal introduction was in order. I'd like to tell a little about my background. I grew up on a farm in Garnerville, Iowa. My brother and I have farms in Guttenberg, Garnerville, and Gregor. And I go back and haul corn, combine, whatever, put in hiders, whatever I have to do on occasional weekends. And I graduated from the University of Northern Iowa. While I was there, I went through the Army ROTC program. I got commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Army. I served on active duty. I retired from the Army. A good share of my time was in the National Guard. I own Metro Transmission on Blair's Ferry Road. I've owned that business for almost 25 years. We have been on the Iowa Manufacturer Register for nearly 20 of those years. My biggest accomplishment is raising two college-educated daughters who are successful in their fields and who paid their own way through college and learned from my wife and I.
Thank you. The first question is going to go to Mr. Gull. You'll have 2 minutes, and then Mr. Rogers, you'll have 2 minutes. So, this one is dealing with the number of supervisors. What is your opinion regarding the number of supervisors necessary to represent all of Linn County constituents?
For the last year, we have gone around and talked to people and had a petition to reduce it from 5 supervisors to 3. The reason being, we have more people employed by the government than in manufacturing. We need to reduce the size of our government. The reason for this, it's about representation. But why don't we go to 9 supervisors? Why don't we go to 7? It's all about money. If we can reduce it from 5 to 3, we can save $1 million in payroll burden. That's significant. As I go around knocking on doors, people are fed up with the salaries that we're paying the supervisors. And that's what I hear over and over. The first thing they ask me is, what party do you represent? And I work into it, well, it should be a nonpartisan position. I'm looking at it from a standpoint of a job. And they say, boy, they sure pay those guys an awful lot of money. Yes, they do. $2.7 million for 5 supervisors for 1 term of service. That is huge. So we saw an opportunity to save the taxpayers' money, and we are seizing it. And so we have almost 10,000 votes, and the supervisors took the wind out of our sails and put it on the ballot before we had to turn in the signatures. 10,000 people say this is the way to go.
I believe that the community is served best by 5 supervisors. Supervisor Reynolds and I both came on at the time when it went from 3 to 5. And 5, the reason being is that the community did advocate for greater rural representation, and I believe that not only has there been better rural representation, but there is greater diversity of thought, greater diversity of opinion and life experiences that help shape and craft policy. If we go back to 3, Tim's right, this is about representation. We will go back to at least 2 supervisors representing Cedar Rapids. Those will be Democrats, and a third will most likely be a Democrat from outside of Cedar Rapids. I'm a Democrat, and I don't want that. I want diversity of thought and opinions, and I think that the community is best served when urban, rural, Republican, and Democrats have a seat at the table of the Board of Supervisors. He brings up $1 million, and that is true that over 4 years you could reduce by $1 million, but at that same time, Linn County will have spent $420 million in our budget. So that $1 million really is 0.2%. So while you would want to, perhaps you want to reduce the size of government, what it's costing you is representation. And there's a lot of people who we serve, rural, urban, who contact us daily about their road issues, about mental health issues, about disability services, about planning and zoning. We have to be educated and knowledgeable about all of those because we are the CEOs of the organization. We have 16 department heads that report to us and over 700 employees. And so my full-time focus has been learning about the complexities of county government and how to best serve residents of District 3. Sorry, we're going to get better at this.
And then we'll be on the cross-country team.
Right.
Something. The next question will go to Ben Rogers first. Do you believe that the supervisor's job should be a full-time position?
Yes. No, I believe this is a full-time position. As I said, that we are the CEOs of a $105 million company. We have 16 people that report to us. We are responsible for that budget. We're responsible for the budget of the other elected officials. We oversee many different county functions and have to react accordingly. We set policy, we set ordinances, we try and lobby for legislation, and we are also needing to be accessible to our constituents. I think any and all of us could share stories where we get contacted daily, even from residents outside of our district, to address issues, and we all do so in a very collaborative manner. And so this really is a full-time job. You don't learn about the complexities of mental health and disabilities services by part-timing this. You don't learn about what it takes to have a world-class secondary road system so that our farm-to-market roads are passable, travelable, and that we put the right kind of resources in for people. You don't part-time learning about all the different zoning requirements that people come to us all the time, or what it means to have good air and water quality at public health. This really is a soup to nuts kind of job that if you really look at it honestly, is a full-time position.
I think the real question here is 2 supervisors worth $1 million? My answer is no. We need to look at business in general. We're having to do more with less. I'm a retired former infantry officer. I bank with USAA. If you were to write me a check right now, I could take my cell phone out, I could take a picture of that check, or I could scan that check. That money is instantly deposited in my account. I can go to an ATM here in Cedar Rapids and access cash. The point I'm making, I have never set foot in San Antonio, Texas. The point I'm making here is technology has changed the way and the supervisors need to apply that. When you have a road that's as a washout or is meeting up your semi, a farmer ought to be able to just take a picture of that, text it, email it to the supervisors. They should be able to get somebody on that road. We don't need to get a bunch of supervisors in a van and go look, yeah, we got a washout. We need to address this. We need to get a committee. We should be able to get instantaneous results. And that is, the cost savings, I think, is there. And like private industry, we need to learn to do more with less. And like I said earlier, we have more people employed in government and in manufacturing, and that has got to change. And we can change that at the local level.
Just a quick rebuttal.
Yes, but then he would have
Yeah,
a chance to respond
absolutely.
as well. Sure.
All right, thank you.
One of the things I said that I am proud of is that your county tax rate is lower today than when I started. And that is with 5 supervisors. That's when we went from 3 to 5. That was right after the flood. That was right after the economic downturn and into our flood recovery and flood rebuilding. A lot of that is through our innovative budgeting practices called budgeting for outcomes, where we set a 0% growth for our department heads. We've done this at least the last 5 or 6 years. We make them stay within those budgetary parameters, and if there's additional dollars afterwards, departments can submit ideas. They need to collaborate with each other. They need to make sure that those ideas are connected to the strategic plan, because that's additional dollars that we could fund to them. So overall, we have reduced the size of government, we have reduced the cost of government, and I'm spearheading the implementation of utilizing business principles such as lean efficiency, Six Sigma, and others to try and create a more customer-centered culture that produces a better product for you and a better service more timely and efficiently. And so we do go out and look at potholes, because we also have to direct the secondary roads engineer that this is something we want changed. If it was simply a formula that a pothole is a certain size, or this residence head wall is within the county right-of-way, well then they wouldn't get the kind of attention and service that really comes with someone coming out there, understanding the issue, advocating it, and then looking outside the box. Because a lot of people's situations do fit within sort of the parameters, but there's always those that exist outside of it. And that's when you really want your representatives to understand your issue and advocate for you.
Mr. Gull, if you'd like to respond?
Yes.
Was this two? Yeah, this was two.
Ben, I'm glad you brought up the property tax issue. I went back and got my property taxes, and this is what brings me here tonight. We are going to have our house paid off this spring, and we were looking at our financial plan, and the question came up, are we going to be able to afford to live in the house that we're living in when we retire? As I look at the group here, I think a lot of people are probably in my situation. You are close to retirement, you're retired, and when you're retired, you're on a fixed income, you're looking very closely at your property taxes. As I go around knocking on doors, the best people I talk to are older people who are on a fixed income. Younger people, if you go in their yard and they've got all these toys, they're so busy with life that they're just making a payment every month. They have no idea what their property tax is. It's escrow. But when you're retired, when you own your home, you know what your property taxes are. I have here my property tax bill. What Ben is telling you is false. Now, if you break your property tax up, it goes to several different places. In my case, Linn Community School District, which has an insatiable desire for my money, the city of Cedar Rapids, and then we come down to Linn County. Of course, there's Kirkwood Community College and the city of Cedar Rapids assessor. We got the agricultural extension and the state of Iowa sales levy. But if we look strictly at the Linn County number here, my taxes did not go down. They did not remain constant. They went up, and I can prove it to you.
Mr. Gull, I think you had your 2 minutes. I think she did. No. Oh, not. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought she did.
As I look at this, and I went back to 2009, my property taxes went up an average about $600 or $100 a month or a year.
You can go ahead and wrap
Oh, okay.
it quickly.
And this is what brings me here tonight, is the property taxes, and why I'm running is because I believe I can make a difference.
Thank you. Mr. Gull, you'll have the next question first. And it's in regard to rural and urban representation. I've got a couple of questions. How will you represent the entire county that you serve? We have a diverse county. How do you balance rural and urban interests and concerns?
I think I'm in a unique position in the fact that I live in Bowman Woods, but I'm also consider myself a farmer. And I understand the needs of farming, maybe not in the rural areas. Because my farm is not in Linn County, it's a little bit different being in Clayton County, but the needs are still the same. We have issues with secondary roads, and probably as much, the big thing is the roads between the city and the county that are waiting to be annexed. Those are the ones that are in the worst shape, because it's a matter of pushing it off on the next deity that owns the road, and so it's pushing the can down the road, and then the next organization that gets that road has to do double time to bring it back to where it should be. As far as keeping better representation, it would be a matter of scheduling meetings in those districts on a regular basis, and getting input of the different rural groups. And I think the Farm Bureau is a big one of those. And having grown up on a farm and being a big part of the Farm Bureau, I think that is a very good solution, along with being in representing the people in the city.
That is a very interesting question. Even though we represent districts, and District 3 is most of the northeast side of Cedar Rapids, we all take calls from other areas, and we will go and meet with constituents, we will communicate with constituents, we collaborate with each other across boundaries and political parties, because that balance of urban and rural is very important, which is why the Farm Bureau was so instrumental in creating the petition drive in 2006 to create 5 supervisors, so that there is a rural seat at the table and that there are rural interests being advocated. I think the board has been very well served by having people who represent Marion and Bertram and Central City and Center Point. John Harris, who represents literally every corner of Linn County. It is just a large donut, including Palo. He is able to go out there and talk with groups, but then also bring other supervisors out there. Even if I'm not have rural citizens, I'm at least going out and understanding the rural issues, the conditions of our roads, what rural citizens need in terms of services, particularly mental health and disability services. If you have a mental health challenge or a disability and you live out in the rural area, services are often not provided out there, or it is very challenging to get services to you, or for you to get to services if you have difficulty with transportation. So it's understanding the needs of both that help you create better policy, understand your constituency, to be able to advocate for their needs, and be the best representative that you can be.
Thank you. And you'll go first the next time.
Okay.
As you talk to people door to door, what are the priorities you're hearing about?
I've gone door to door, not only this campaign, but many other campaigns. The thing I like to pride myself on is listening. Really listening to people at the door is a fascinating experiment. You learn a lot about people, and you learn a lot about yourself, particularly when they don't come to the door clothed. But what I learned from people are very much, first of all, county government is a layer of government they don't have a lot of familiarity with. They know what the state government does. They have an idea of what city government does, but they don't necessarily know what the county does unless they really interact with it a lot. They might think it's roads and it's the sheriff's department. Well, when I explain that we are the safety net for the safety net, we are the layer of government that provides public assistance programs to our community's most vulnerable, they want to learn more about that. I talk with people about our mental health and disability services. You'll hear me talk a lot about that because it's a very important function of government. They often ask about roads and how we collaborate with cities. So I talk to them about all the different partnerships we have with both urban, rural, large, and small, what we do to improve their lives and what we do to improve their conditions. And so going door to door is a wonderful way of asking people what is it that they care about most. They'll often tell you issues that you really don't have at the county. They talk about a certain, like they want their good schools, they want their roads funded, or they want health care a certain way. We might not be able to provide those, but we certainly advocate for them. And we certainly provide those services differently. And so it's a matter of education, and it's a wonderful opportunity to get out, to really listen to the concerns of people, take that feedback, learn from it, and then be able to apply it to whatever policy or legislative conditions that we see or that we want to see change.
Wow, are we even in the same district?
Yes.
As I go knocking on doors, the first thing people ask me is what party I represent. And I tell them it should be a nonpartisan position, but I'm running as a Republican. And then I tell them why I'm running. And, oh, those supervisors, they're the ones that are making all that money over and over. And I said, well, I'm glad we met, because here's where I come in. For the last year, well, not quite a year, we've been getting signatures to put on the petition to reduce it from 5 supervisors to 3. And if you sign this, if you vote this way November 8th, take your ballot, flip it over on the back side, you can save the taxpayers $1 million in payroll burden. And then they ask, what, the supervisors, what do they do? Well, this is for a job that has no job description, has no benchmarks for success or failure, has no measure of success. They can take vacation whenever they want because they're salaried. There's no payroll records. It goes on and on. We can look at all the places that they've visited under the guise of the National Organization of Governments. And so they're staying in all these fancy resorts that you can only stay at if you're on somebody else's per diem. The point is, people don't feel like they're getting value for the money. And if I was going to put money on it, I think we're in a good place. And I'm going to ask that you vote from 5 to 3 and save the taxpayers $1 million in payroll burden.
Mr. Gull, you'll go first on this one. The next question, to deal with conservation. What is your position regarding the Linn County Water and Land Legacy Bond?
My off-the-cuff response is, who doesn't want clean water? Everybody wants clean water. The problem is, the way this bond is written, it looks like a big money grab. $40 million for the next 20 years. If you were to look at the Gazette today on the front page, they were talking about the money that's been spent for conservation in general in the state of Iowa, and what little return we're getting for it. Now, I believe in conservation. We practice that in our farming with terraces. We have grass strips near the waterways. We don't put any more chemicals on than are absolutely necessary to ensure that we get the maximum bushel per acre. But I think this is so poorly written. It might have good intentions, but it will not pass. And I'm going to leave it at that.
We have a really dynamic conservation department who does a lot of progressive programming. We have some pretty world-class parks and facilities that I'm glad aren't the best kept secrets in town, that we have people that come to our parks almost on a daily basis, and they are major economic development drivers for the communities in which they reside. I support this bond referendum. I wish it were a little higher. I think we could do a lot more with water quality, parks, trails, recreation. I think that the 40 million is a great starting place. All of the projects are known and transparent through the Conservation Board. They have to present these. The public will know every dime that is spent on every project. They will know what projects are being worked on, which ones are in the queue, and which ones are down the road. So I don't want to engage in a difference of opinion on the money grab, but that it's simply not a money grab. This is for very specific projects that the public will have full knowledge and access to. This will benefit our community for years to come, and this is part of the economic development and quality of life initiatives that counties like Johnson and Polk have done the exact same thing with the exact same kind of bond language. Easter Lake and Polk County was an old coal pit or an old quarry pit that has been completely redeveloped. Same with Johnson County. And this, for every dollar you spend in conservation, it is turned over and over again in other economic development dollars. Just simply go and talk with Ely about the Hoover Trail, a conservation trail that goes through there, and all the people that are coming into town now because they're riding their bicycles. This is a really great thing for future generations, and I really do look forward to it hopefully passing.
Can I have a rebuttal?
You certainly, then you could also, if you
Sure.
2 minutes. Thank you.
Well, one thing I want to mention, I know somebody who's in the Department of Natural Resources, and he was telling me that we have more trout streams now with this trout spawning than at any ever time. And that tells me we've got a lot of clean waterways and we're seeing improvements there. I don't want to come across as a grumpy person. I enjoy bicycling. I've gone on 9 bike rides. I've been on the bike ride across Georgia. And I can see the difference between Iowa and Georgia. Georgia, the roadsides are like one big garbage dump. You drive through these rural areas and it's just amazing how they treat their roadways. Iowa here, we have the can deposit bill, and I think people here take more pride in things, and the roadways are much nicer. I like the trails, I like walking on them, they're a good asset. But getting back to this bond issue, it is so broadly written, there's no specifics, and like I said earlier, it looks like a big money grab. And let's get the most money we can out of the taxpayers, and then let's figure out what to do with it. And that's absolutely backwards.
As I said, we do have a conservation board. They are a board that meets publicly. Their information is all public. They come and speak to us about the projects that they're working on. The public at any time can go and look and see what projects they're going to be working on, which ones they have designated for the future funds. And if you do look at Iowa, we rank low in terms of cleanliness of water. We might have the cleanest water and drinkable water, but when it comes to our streams and rivers, they are polluted. And that is something that both farmers and conservationists both agree on. And this is something that we can at least begin to start addressing water quality. We're seeing more and more issues of both water quality and water quantity. We just saw it a few weeks ago. We need to really start addressing this through watershed management. We need to start looking at how we treat our water, how we fix our parks, how we connect our trails, and we need to do it in a very programmatic way. And our conservation department is considered one of the best in the state. And so this isn't let's see if we can get a bond first and then we'll think of projects. We have more projects than we have money for. And this helps prioritize those projects, sets them in motion, sets them up for a certain number of years. We know the cost, and we're able to give this community some really world-class quality of life amenities that is so imperative for economic development. If you go and speak with any major employer, they'll tell you they want an educated workforce and they want a place in which their employees want to come to. They want access to trails, parks, recreation life, places where they can assimilate a lot easier, places where they can recreate for free, and that is what this helps accomplish.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another question along that same vein, do you believe conservation monies should be used for cleaning up agricultural pollution?
Is that for me?
That's for you.
Well, I certainly think that it needs to help address that problem, and we also need to work with farmers, and including groups like the Farm Bureau, on addressing water quality when it comes to the tiling of their fields and what kind of wetland mitigations or stormwater management techniques could be beneficial to them. I think what this does help, though, is that there is nitrates going into the water. We do have this runoff coming in, and we need to start addressing it. And so this is really a multi-pronged approach where you have farmers starting to invest in these kind of practices. You have a community that has resources available to start dealing with water quality. And future generations, like my 2.5-month-old daughter and 4-year-old stepson, will reap the benefits. And if we don't do this now, we can't rely just on the farmers to do it. This has to be a partnership between conservation, between municipalities and farmers. So I do hope that this bond passes.
I'd like to add one other thing. I think we're seeing more farmers now than ever using cover crops in the fall. And that's keeping the soil from eroding. It's putting nutrients in the soil. And farmers understand that erosion takes away their livelihood. And back to the streams, trout are not bottom feeders, catfish are. Trout do well in clean water. As far as allocating the money, we have a lot of different soil types in Iowa. We've got clay soil, we've got topsoil, and depending on where it is, that affects the type of contamination that is runoff or is leached into the soil. And I think the areas that are having the most pollution are the ones that need to have the resources allocated to them for cleanup. The problem is just throwing money at a problem doesn't solve it. We need to identify the working steps to make those problems go away and keep them from coming back.
Thank you. The next question, a little different topic, on managed care and mental health and developmental disabilities. What are your thoughts on this transition to the managed care system that's happened over the last couple of years?
Who goes?
You're first,
Okay.
I believe.
Okay.
Well, as you're aware,
No,
the-
I think Mr. Gull is first, right?
do you want to repeat the question?
Yes, I will do that. What are your thoughts on the transition to the managed care organization, the change in the county system dealing with mental health and developmental disabilities?
I think it's too early to make judgments on this. It hasn't been implemented long enough. I think there's still things that need to be ironed out. From a Linn County Supervisor standpoint, that's about 100 less employees that you have on your payroll burden, and which makes the reason to going from 5 to 3 that much more significant, because I think we probably have less employees employed in Linn County now than when we did when we had 3 supervisors. I am not as far as the transition, I'm not a person that's been affected by it, and so I can't comment beyond that. All I can say is what I've heard from reading the media. So.
The transition to 3 managed care organization was really rushed into, and even though it's still early in its implementation, the results were felt almost immediately. The 3 managed care organizations were given a mandate to save $50 million of a $4.5 billion system to manage Medicaid dollars. The way that you reduce that is certainly you find inefficiencies and duplication, but you also do the bulk of that by reducing the rates you reimburse the providers, and you cut services. I'm on the ARC of East Central Iowa, which is a group that provides services for people with disabilities. They are seeing that not only are they not being reimbursed for the correct amounts that they're contracted for, but it's taking months to get reimbursed. They're in a financial position where they can sort of weather the storm as they're anticipating money's coming in, but there are other organizations that are taking out lines of credit to pay payroll because these managed care organizations are taking so long to reimburse. There are also 3 new systems, computer systems, for these 3 managed care organizations. They code differently for a unit of service. They have different definitions for the same unit of service. And so it's been a real challenge for providers to figure out and navigate these waters. They have seen reduction in services for certain people, whether they have a specific mental illness or a disability. And the governor is going to mandate even more savings, and that means more cuts and more reductions in how these critical providers of service are able to provide mental health care and disability. So the transition was done very quickly, and I think that the impact has been felt immediately, and I would not be surprised if you see the legislature really take this under review in the at least next several legislative sessions.
Thank you. Next, Ben, you'll go. And the question is on Tower Terrace Road. What is your view on the extension of Tower Terrace Road and the addition of entrance and exit ramps to Interstate 380?
Tower Terrace is one of those, and I think Tim and I both agree on this, is a major road improvement that we need in this community. We need entrances and exits on 380. We need to complete Tower Terrace as well as Highway 100 so that we can start addressing issues like Boyson Road, which if you've ever had to go on Boyson Road and turn right, it's an absolute nightmare right off the interstate. Traffic backs up. You're unable to get through the lights safely. They're not able to get traffic flows appropriately. Tower Terrace is one of those that is going to be a major economic development driver. Linn County, as well as the other municipalities, Robbins, Marion, and Cedar Rapids, have all signed on to their portion of Tower Terrace to complete, and I think we've also, Supervisor Olson just went and presented to the Iowa Department of Transportation on Tuesday to get the Tower Terrace into the fiscally constrained plan for the DOT, so that this can be completed in the years to get into the 2021 plan. I think by the time we actually get these roads finished, we'll have flying cars by then. But the idea is get it into the fiscally constrained plan of the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, get the DOT to fund it. We're going to put our dollars in to complete our section, and then have a major road that citizens can engage in, that will take pressure off of Boyson, and we can certainly add that into our economic development package for recruiting and retaining people here.
Thank you.
I agree with Ben 100% on the Tower Terrace Road. Hy-Vee has purchased the property at the corner of East Robbins Road and C Avenue. A typical Hy-Vee employs 400 people. They're not going to build a new store until that road is done. We can expect at the intersection or interchange of Tower Terrace and 380, we would expect to see hotels, restaurants, convenience stores, retail. Going further east toward Marion, there's some manufacturing, light manufacturing, industrial. And I think conservatively, not including the people employed in building the roads or the people in constructing the buildings, but I think conservatively we could expect upwards of 1,000 people would have jobs created for them if that was done. I live in Bowman Woods, and the traffic on Boyson Road and Blair's Ferry and Collins is going to be tore up for years to come. Boyson was never made to handle that level of traffic, and consequently Blair's Ferry is being the dumping grounds for all those cars. Fortunately, I own a business on Blair's Ferry Road, and that traffic count has been very good to me. Ironically, if you took yesterday's paper, the Gazette, and you opened it up to the inside, the two major issues that I'm here running for tonight are on this page. The first one is vote 5-3, save $1 million. If we can save $1 million without ever setting foot in office, imagine what we can do if I'm voted in office. And then the second one is the funding for Tower Terrace Road.
Mr. Gull, you'll go first on this one. Another question on roads. Where's all the money coming from to pave roads that are already hard surfaced? And some examples: Mount Vernon Road, County Home Road, River Road by Mount Vernon, and Ivanhoe Bridge. Mr. Gull.
I don't have an answer for the funding. If you want to read the paper, yesterday's paper, that goes into detail of how they're going to fund the Tower Terrace Road. I think a combination of public and maybe to some degree some private funding. There's a lot of developers that stand to gain a lot if this road is completed and if they can accelerate it.
Part of your tax dollars do go to our secondary road system. We also have had, for the last number of years, a local option sales tax that has gone to improvements into our secondary road system. We do have a 3-mile grid system, so that where you're anywhere in the county, you're at least 3 miles away from a hard surface road. We have an engineer who programs out and is publicly available all the different road construction projects, when they're scheduled to start, when they're scheduled to complete, what type of surface they'll be. And so we do have a lot of hard surface roads. We have a lot of new roads that we're building and a lot of roads that we need to maintain. And so this comes from both tax dollars, comes from local option sales tax, and from the Time 21 and Road Use Tax Fund formula that benefits county roads from the state. You're welcome.
Next question. What is your opinion regarding the minimum wage plan?
Does that mean?
I believe it is.
Great. Well, I spearheaded it, so I'm fully in favor of it. I think that the minimum wage is an issue that I understand cuts both ways deeply. I was at the Centerpoint City Council the other night with Supervisor John Harris, listening to small business owners talk about the minimum wage at their public forum. Because we are the provider of services that people need when they can't afford to meet basic needs, that's why you're seeing counties beginning to have this conversation. Linn has passed it, Johnson has passed it, Polk County yesterday passed it, Wapello has passed it, and if you don't see any action this legislative session, you will see many other counties taking this up. And so in talking with the business owners from Centerpoint or even from Cedar Rapids, I try and explain to them why we're doing this. We're doing it in a methodical way in which we propose 3 incremental steps, from $7.25, which is the current minimum wage, to $8.25, $9.25, and $10.25. Now, each municipality in Linn County can choose to support our ordinance or vote to lower it to a different level. And so we are constantly trying to, I've spoken with the Hiawatha City Council, or I'm speaking with Marion and Cedar Rapids about the benefits of a minimum wage increase. The market does and has set a rate that is above or comparable and a little bit above to what we're recommending. So this doesn't impact a large majority of businesses at all. This does impact, though, those businesses, and we're trying to work with them and their employees on understanding how a minimum wage increase does benefit all sectors of the community. And again, since our perspective is we provide these services, we are seeing more and more people working more and more jobs, being unable to meet their basic needs. And the only pathway out of poverty is through increased wages. This will not solve poverty, but this is the first step in at least trying to address that problem.
The minimum wage debate is nothing but election year politics. My question to you is, will increasing the minimum wage create one single job? The answer is no. You couldn't pick a group of people less qualified to make a decision on the minimum wage than the 4 supervisors that have decided to go in that direction. None of them have ever produced a product or a service or created a payroll. Their whole existence has been taking from one group and giving to another. If they would look to the math, if they follow the progression that they're wanting to do, that is a 36.7% increase in 3 years. There aren't that many businesses that see a 10% increase in sales a year. They don't see a 10% increase in profits. This amount is going to be a job killer. I want to give you an example. Has anybody driven by Lindale Mall lately? There used to be a Burger King, a Pizza Hut, and a Village Inn. They raised the rent, and each one of those businesses immediately closed their doors. Now, rent is a solid number that you can plan for that is consistent every month. Payroll is not like that. People get sick, people get pregnant. You have employees like the Taco John or Taco Bell on Blairs Ferry Road where an employee was creating a meth lab. How do you plan for something like that?
May I?
Absolutely.
Thank you. You're right, it doesn't create jobs, and that was not what it's intended to do. It's intended to address that there are about 18,400 workers in Linn County that could benefit from a minimum wage increase. These individuals, 80% of them are over the age of 20, and 87% of them have at least a high school education. These are working families, they're working adults, many of them working families, and they're educated. We are talking about raising the low end of low wages. 1025, if someone worked every hour of every week, an 8-hour day, for every week, for a year, and didn't miss 1 hour, that's around $21,000. You are not able to meet basic needs in this community at that wage rate. This is not a job killer. What we are doing is, many jobs are already paying above 10. You can't go to a Hy-Vee or a small grocery store like Fairway and start below 10. We're talking about, though, positions where people are being paid a low wage, they need other assistance to supplement, and we are talking about raising those wages to give a pathway out of poverty so that people could either qualify or receive less benefits. But there's also a quality of life aspect to this. It's maybe working 2 jobs instead of 3. It's maybe not having to take a weekend shift. It's about maybe getting to spend a little bit more time with your children and family, and maybe being able to enjoy some of being more civically engaged, going to parks, going to events, not being shackled by the responsibilities of trying to get to a job that working a 3rd shift when you've already worked a 2nd shift. So there is a quality of life aspect to this.
Would you like to respond?
Oh, sorry.
I believe that progression in earnings comes from the employee's contribution, his motivation, attendance, skill, aptitude, and the profits of the business. I have an employee by the name of Lau. Lau is from Nepal, India. In India, they have the caste system. If you're born into that socio-economic group, that's where you stay. They fled India, came to this country. Lau learned something that I wish a lot of Americans would learn. The harder you work, the more you make. And you can have anything you want if you're willing to work for it. Did I mention I have 2 successful daughters who are college graduates, are successful in their careers, have built new homes, the youngest one just recently got married. They learned from my wife and I example. They got jobs at a very young age. The oldest one got a job at Fairway, making minimum wage as a grocery stacker. it wasn't very long where she realized if she worked a little harder, she would get tips from customers. It wasn't very long, they gave her a raise. My other daughter worked at Texas Roadhouse. Now she's a real cheery blonde. Learned that if you suggest to customers to get the medallions, that's about 3 times the cost of the roadkill, you get a bigger tip. And she made so much money at Texas Roadhouse that I was afraid that when she graduated from college, she wouldn't make that kind of money. The point is, government dictating wages is not the answer.
Or have I rebuttal?
All right, I'm going to move on, and I think we're coming near the end of our time as well. I'd like to get in a question about, we've had a couple come in, at least a couple on, about land acquisition, and this will go to Mr. Gull first. What is your position on public land acquisition? The other question that came in was, how would you propose making up the difference in tax revenues when land goes from private to public, and the effects it has on things like school district revenues? So your position on public land and how that impacts and how you'd address that. Mr. Gull. Thanks.
I don't think it should be wrong for a private individual to give property to the government, because the government has no problem using eminent domain to take your property. My real problem is what having property that is owned by the taxpayers, that is property of Linn County, and we just give it away. I'm going to talk about the Abbey Center at the corner of Highway 13 and County Home Road. Has anybody driven by there lately? It's a bunch of rubble and a bunch of weeds. That property had a tax valuation in the millions. Now, if you and I had a boat or a summer home, and it was winter, you would drain the pipes, you would winterize it. And if you were going to put it on the market, you would spruce it up, you would get a professional that knows how to liquidate an asset worth millions of dollars. The supervisors didn't oversee that. The water pipes froze. It damaged the property. And it ended up taking away another possibility of a place that we could renovate and use for mental health. I just think it's an absolute travesty. And so what have they done? They planted wildflowers for the monarch butterfly. The other one I want to talk about is the Mott Building. The Mott Building, it was built by Cedar Rapidians, employed Cedar Rapidians, and they took the proceeds and had an artist from Bakersfield, California, probably the most expensive cost of living areas. If they're going to do that, they should have gone to China and got more swirls for the money. I think of all the artists that we have in town here, and I'm sorry.
Well, a lot was covered there. In terms of public land acquisition, the Linn County Board of Supervisors bought 70 acres of land over by Morgan Creek. That is one of the best parks we have in this community. If you haven't gone out to it, I highly recommend it. You can bring your dogs. Cross-country skiers love it. We have people out there all the time. It's absolutely wonderful. We bought some property that we knew was going to, or some families said that they would probably like to sell because there's going to be a school bought property north of it, and we could incorporate this into the expansion of Morgan Creek Park, and so that will be an extra jewel in our crown. We also have 120 acres of farmland over by the Solid Waste Agency that we are leasing to a group called Prospect Meadows. We are keeping that in the possession of taxpayers because we're not selling that land in case that group uses it as collateral, goes bankrupt, sells it to a developer, and we lose all control. But what taxpayers will have will be control of a land that has 17 ball diamonds on it, that is Perfect Game will help administer it, and we will have tens of millions of dollars coming into Marion and Linn County because we own that land and because we are partnering with Perfect Game and Prospect Meadows to create a world-class economic development driver. So there are benefits of acquiring public land so that public can use it. But regarding the Abbey Center was built in the 70s to be a large institutional residential care facility. That is not allowed by law anymore. And so that building had seen its days. It was crumbling. We were spending more in maintenance than we were receiving in rent, and nobody wanted to buy it. That is why it no longer exists. It cannot be repurposed for mental health. It cannot be repurposed for disability services. And that we had a nursing home developer come in. They walked in the front door, saw it, turned around, walked away. Same with the daycare, because of the amount of money that would be needed to even get it up to code, because it was so old and it became such a maintenance and energy consumption monster. Yeah, would you like a rebuttal?
How much time do we have?
We're done at 1:45.
Oh, quarter to, okay.
So, do you want me to move on to another question?
Okay.
Okay. I have kind of a general question, a little more global. County future and your agenda. What are the top 3 issues facing Linn County government, in your opinion, and how will you address these? 3 top issues you think are facing county government. Mr. Rogers?
That is a very good question. That can be answered many different ways. We will always continue to have challenges on our budget. And we are, again, one of the only counties in Iowa with a AAA bond rating. We have maintained a tax rate that is lower than when I started in 2009. And no matter if this goes to 3 or stays at 5, or we have new members or the same members, maintaining Linn County's fiscal strength is really the top priority of every supervisor, no matter their party affiliation or who they represent. So that's always going to be a challenge. That's always going to be a challenge because of the pressures put on the counties from the state legislature, from natural disasters, from decreases in valuation reports or your assessed value of your home. And so we have to budget with those accordingly. One of the other issues, I talk about this frequently, it's sort of my brand, but it's really my passion, is mental health and disability services. The legislature still has not yet funded regional mental health and disability services. They adjourned last session without funding it. They have to fund it this year. They then have to fund it in a way that is both stable and predictable so providers and people with disabilities or mental health know they can get services, they know that their provider is going to be around, and they know that people are going to help take care of them. And the last is the issue I've also been talking about, is helping to transform Linn County's culture to become more customer-centered, and that we're investing in techniques and technologies and business practices that help us become more effective and efficient. That helps drive our budget, that helps us become more lean, that helps us do things more effectively, and that really helps us use your hard-earned tax dollars more wisely. Those are the 3 issues. I'm sure I could rattle off a few more, but those are the issues that come to mind.
Thank you.
The primary function of the supervisors is to take the collected property taxes and form a budget. And so the number 1 priority is fiscal responsibility. Payroll, like in any business for the county, is probably the largest expense. And first of all, in developing the budget, you've got 6 unions that you have to meet their obligations. And then you work with what's left over. Having lost over 100 employees with the managed care, we have a less payroll budget now than we did. The next thing I want to talk about is Tower Terrace Road. I think that's a priority, and we talked about that. And I'm going to have to come to that. My mind is it's escaping me for right now. So can we go on to something else and I can come back to it?
Well, I'm going to move on to closing statements. Ben, would you like to begin your closing statement?
I truly want to, again, thank you for spending your Thursday night with us and being part of this conversation. I believe that decisions are made by those who show up. And so by you showing up tonight, you're being an integral part of this process. I want to, again, continually thank the League of Women Voters for their engaging citizens and ensuring that they have access to both the candidates and elected officials as well as their information. They do our State of the County. They helped with a minimum wage form that I did. They're such a valuable resource to engage both the citizens with their government. And again, thanks to Tim, I really appreciate being able to share our ideas and vision for the future of Linn County. I think you have heard some differences, and so you do understand that you have a choice. I do believe that Linn County is served best by having 5 supervisors. I believe that this is about representation, and this is about ensuring that people who are urban, rural, Republican or Democrat, all have a voice, all have a seat, and all have the ability to be heard on the Board of Supervisors, because what we do is important. And my full-time focus has been, and will continue to be if I'm reelected, is listening to my constituents, ensuring Linn County maintains its fiscal strength and stability, ensuring that the safety net for people with mental health and disabilities is strengthened, investing in quality of life initiatives that make Linn County a great place to live, work, and raise a family, and implementing the principles of business to make sure that what we do is more effective and efficient. And so I want to make sure that, a lot of people say, why can't government run like a business? Well, we're proving that it can. And so there's a lot of exciting times ahead. It has been an absolute honor and a privilege to be your supervisor. And I would humbly ask for your vote on election day, or if you're voting early, by absentee ballot. And again, thank you so much for being here.
Once again, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on, and the people in attendance for not walking out on me. This is my first stab at running for county government of any kind for that matter. Having been a business owner and served in the military, my time is now, and so I thought they needed some competition, so I thought I would give it to them. I believe that government works best, that government's the least. And that is my philosophy, and that's why I believe going from 5 to 3 is the direction we want to go. And like I said, we have fewer people now. There's no reason why it can't go like the way it was before. And the big difference now is technology. If we apply technology the way we should, it should run smoothly. We don't have to look any further than the flood effort. I have a daughter that built a new home not too far from Ellis Boulevard. I have boathouses in the harbor. I knew the traffic was so bad during the flood time that I couldn't even get over there once the water started rising. And what it made a difference now is my phone was going off all the time, telling me what the water level was, the types of things that we need to be looking at. And they had drones flying over. I could see my boathouse clear as day. It's not floating down river, it's holding steady. And technology is a wonderful thing when it's applied. And we need to apply it in this position. And I thank you very much for your time tonight. You've been a great audience. Thank you, and thank you, Ben.
I'd like to close this forum by thanking the candidates for your participation. I'd also like to remind all of you that there's a website that you can go to get more information, both at the local level, the state level, and the national level. Go to vote411.org, and there you'll find responses to local league questions to local candidates, state league questions to state candidates, and national league questions to national league candidates. So please, if you'd like further information, go to that website. I would also like to thank Kirkwood Community College for providing this great facility for us. And again, thanks for coming out tonight, and vote.